Hi there, I'm Hana Q, your local digital artist, and I want to wish you a belated Happy Lunar New Year. So, I've tried almost every art program under the digital sun, and while they are cool in their own ways, I always find myself drawn back to one art app in particular. It's free, easy to use, and rich in tutorials. Of course, I'm talking about the one, the only, Ibis Paint X. I don't know whether it's the simple interface, the fun community and video tutorials, or its strange and uncanny lore surrounding its white mochi head mascot, but I cannot help my undying love and intrigue for this art app. So, as a result, for the better part of the last year, I spent most of my time learning Ibis Paint X and made some artworks I'm pretty proud of on there. As you can see, this app is fully capable of making beautiful artworks, and there's a lot I genuinely love about it. With that being said, I think I might be the perfect candidate to share with you guys my top 10 Ibis Paint X tips. These tips cover everything from basic tips to my own personal techniques. So it's perfect whether you're a beginner or seasoned artist trying to learn from other styles. And all the while, I'll be working on a new drawing and sharing my entire process while using the tips I share. Alright, are you guys ready to dive into this Ibis Paint X rabbit hole with me? Okie dokie, let's get into it. I have my Ibis Paint X open now, and I draw on an iPad. First things first, I always have to take time to admire today's top daily paintings. Alright, now I hit my gallery and go to make a new canvas by pressing this plus symbol. I normally draw on a canvas size of 2000 pixels by 2500 pixels because the 4:5 ratio works well on most social media platforms. But today, I want to draw on a taller canvas, so I'll be upping the size here. Once you hit OK, you will be greeted by the drawing workspace. Starting at the bottom, you've got additional settings here, your layer menu, color wheel, brush menu, and you can switch between brush and eraser using this button. Increase and decrease the brush size using this slider and the opacity with this slider. On the left side are your tools ranging from transform to bucket to special effects and more. At the top right, these are more of your settings including canvas, toggles for grids, and other quick selections. The great thing about Ibis Paint X is that you can use all the brushes it provides for 4 hours by watching a simple ad. So here I am watching my daily ad, and I will have to question why they think I am the target audience for this saucy yaoi ad, but I guess, sure, why not? Let's go, yaoi boys! And now, we are ready to start our sketching. I start with the base sketch by using a little gray brush to sketch the general shapes and the base of the body. Okie dokie, it's time to work on some details. So I zoom in to draw the eyes. Okay, now it's time to zoom out to check the lines look right, but it turns out I don't like it. So I zoom in again to draw a new line, and then zoom out again to check, and rinse and repeat. The issue here is that it ends up being very time consuming to do this constant zooming in and out motion. Tip number 1 is to use a reference window. By using a reference window, you will always have the full canvas available on the side to check your composition, sizes, and color as you focus on finer details zoomed in. All in all, this can help speed up your workflow. To enable it, you simply press this toggle button on the top right and then turn on the reference window. You can change the size by dragging the corners, and you can even add references. Additionally, you can press and hold on a color on your reference window to quickly select it, making it easier to do studies and speed up painting from reference. Although this tip is very simple, it is extremely effective in improving not only the quality of your workflow, but the drawing itself. Most of the time, people will only see thumbnail sizes of your drawing, so making sure it's eye-catching from afar or small will help improve its quality. It has certainly saved my behind many times from making minute changes that at best no one will see, or at worst, disrupt the harmony of the drawing. Alright, so I have some teeny tiny tips that I want to share with you guys that are essential but didn't make it into my top 10 list. I think I'll call them mini tips. When I first started learning Ibis Paint X, I didn't know where any of the shortcuts were, including flipping my canvas or changing the background color. But thanks to my loving Ibis Paint X community, I have since learned. So for mini tip number 1, open the layer menu and ta-da! camera, you can flip your canvas using these buttons. Additionally, you can change your background color by double tapping this button. I'm gonna set mine to a lightish gray to be easier on my eyes. Back to sketching here, and I want to introduce you guys to who I'm drawing. I'm drawing my original character Jin for the Lunar New Year. Coincidentally, she was the first character I ever drew on Ibis Paint X last year, so I thought it would be fitting to draw her again this year. I am a little bit late, but I'm drawing her with a snake to celebrate the Year of the Snake. Jin normally has a fiery personality, and I like to consider her my embodiment of feminine rage, a feeling I'm sure many of you can relate to. But she's not all flames and destruction. As with anyone, she has a safely guarded, vulnerable, and soft side. To capture that, I wanted to depict her in a serene scene with a simple all-white outfit and in the water. Although she's still a spicy girl, she relents a bit. It's almost like a rebirth, if you will. All in line with the new year. Sometimes when you're sketching, things can be wonky or not the right size, and while you may redraw it over and over, you still can't get it right. Let me introduce you to every artist's best friend and tip number 2, the liquify tool. The liquify tool acts like a brush that lets you move and shove things around until you've got it in just the right position. When you combine it with the lasso tool, you can isolate an area like the head to resize, rotate, or whatever you need, and go in with the liquify tool to further correct within that selection. To use it, select the special tool and hit the bottom right cogwheel to open the menu and select the liquify tool. From here, adjust the strength and size and use it on the canvas like any other normal brush. To liquify within a selection, select the lasso tool from your toolbar and draw around the intended area. Using the options on the bottom right, you can resize, rotate, or move it by pressing on the canvas and dragging around. Now, you can liquify within the selection so that you don't affect the area outside. One thing to watch out for is liquifying can affect the quality of your lines, making them blurrier. So I like to make the most of this tool in the sketching phase to ensure the important shapes and silhouettes are in place. Then in the lining phase, all I have to do is follow those shapes, simply cleaning and clarifying lines when needed. With that, we have all we need to finish our sketch. One issue you may have while lining or even while drawing are these shaky and unstable lines that are evident by these rigid bumps. This might happen more if you have no pen pressure, like if you happen to be drawing on your phone. If this isn't your intended effect, it can be quite annoying. For tip number 3, we can use stabilizer and brush settings to stabilize our strokes and add sharper ends. Now, our lines are significantly smoother with a more realistic tapering off at the end for sharp ends. To enable stabilizer, select this hand button on the top right and enable your stabilizer. Turn up the strength to your desired amount. To add sharper, thin ends to your strokes, turn on Force Fade. Afterwards, make sure you go to your brush, then Basic Brush Settings, and adjust your thickness at the start and end to a lower number on the sliders, and turn the Force Fade toggle on. This should ensure your Force Fade is properly enabled, and you can adjust the sliders as necessary for your desired outcome. These days, I always use stabilizer because my hands are of the particularly shaky nature. Maybe due to either being constantly cold or drinking way too much bubble tea, I would be embarrassed to say for sure. Either way, I can't draw anything without it. To be honest with you, I do still have issues with Ibis Paint X's pen pressure in terms of being able to control your brush opacity and tapering with precision. But for a free art app, I'm happy with what we have, and I'm sure the developers are looking for ways to improve and update the app. So fingers crossed that gets improved upon in the future. Anyhow, to work around it, I just work using really low pen opacity. So in line with the new year, I'm trying to change my approach to drawing. My goal is to practice drawing different things more. And to the surprise of my past self for sure, I actually did a few studies to prepare myself for this drawing. First, I did some little snake practices, and oh my goodness, look at its little puppy face. I love it. For Jin, I wanted to contrast her normally black outfit by having her in simple white undergarments. So I did a full body design test to play with shapes, but I ended up really liking the drawing. So like a ship of men being called by a siren, I couldn't help to heed to the call of my child to pretty much finish her, which I thought came out nicely. And lastly, I did some water studies, which is very new for me. I'm still dabbling, but it was pretty fun. Fun fact about me, I cannot swim, so I would definitely be wearing floaties if I were Jin. So yeah, hopefully my extra work pays off instead of just mindlessly winging things like I normally do. Do you guys have any goals for the new year? If so, I'm wishing y'all the best on achieving them. Let's work hard together. You've got this. Does anybody actually like drawing hands? I'm just joking. They can be quite enjoyable once you learn. But let's face it, they sure are difficult. As with other body parts like feet, sometimes you just have more trouble drawing them than usual. When you're in such a pickle, try using tip number 4, materials for references. IBIS Paint X has tons of free resources in their materials you can use for reference or tracing. Additionally, there's even tons of other materials for adding pizzazz to your drawing. Here's how you use it. Hit the materials button on the top right and go to Tracing Sketches Partial. Scroll through to find the material you want to use. Once selected, resize and rotate into position. You can then turn down the opacity and trace it as is, or use it as a reference for your drawing. I'm an advocate for learning how to draw hands and putting in the work to understand them. But I also think it's perfectly fine to use these resources if this is what they're intended for. IBIS Paint X has tons of referenceable materials, not just hands, that you can feel perfectly safe using. So I think that's the biggest win here. Let's remember to enjoy drawing and not put arbitrary restrictions on ourselves. Okie dokie, it's time to finish up the line art here. Oftentimes, when you're adding your base colors, it can be hard to see, especially if you're coloring light skin against a white background. Or maybe you're just looking for a new way to add your base colors. In either scenario, I'd like to recommend you try out tip number 5. Using the selection layer for base coloring. Using the paint bucket tool on the selection layer lets you fill in areas easily, and with a pen or lasso tool, you can quickly fill in missed parts or corners. Or you can fill in your selection by selecting the outside of your drawing and flipping the selection to create a quick mask. To make use of the selection layer, open up your layer menu and press the selection layer. Select your paint bucket tool and adjust your settings to be aware of gaps. Just fill in the areas you want now. Then I'll use the pen and lasso tool to fill in areas the paint bucket tool missed. This blue area is your selection area, and now you can make a new layer to fill in your base color. For a quick mask, you can select the outside area of your drawing, then flip the selection in the layer menu using this button. Same thing, you'll want to add a new layer and fill in your new mask. This method does require somewhat clean line art with little to no gaps to make the most of it, but it is easily redeemable by just filling gaps in with a pen in the selection layer and proceeding to use the bucket tool as usual, or combine with the use of lasso tool to properly accommodate your artwork. I know there's tons of ways to fill in your base colors, but I figured having another method in your arsenal couldn't hurt. Alrighty, we've finished our base coloring and now it's time to start shading. But first, we have to talk about our problem. Yes, our collective problem. You know what I'm talking about. That little but big goal you wrote as your New Year's resolution that you know fully well you have no idea how to start. Well, no more of that. As your big sister, I am holding us accountable to actually completing it this year. And the best way to do that is by making a board plan. Let me introduce you to Milanote, the sponsor of today's video. I am a scatterbrained mess, and yet somehow I manage my way through the most complex of projects like making my own VTuber or putting together lore and research videos. That is because I've been using Milanote, a powerful organizational tool where you can plan, brainstorm, and collaborate on all your creative projects in a flexible workspace. Your boards are customizable to your liking, so you can add as many images, notes, and references as you need. For me, having a way to visually organize my thoughts in this unstructured manner helps my creativity flow. I love that I can mold my board to any topic I want. For this IBIS Paint video, I needed a way to organize all of my tips. So I have my main board here that acts as a home page and reminder on my overall vibe and goals with the artwork, as well as subboards for my written tips and image references. As we enter our first subboard, you can see this is where I've written down all of my tips. Each tip corresponds to a different part of the drawing process, like sketching, coloring, coloring, background, etc. So I've added arrows to show that flow. Between each tip, I've created a to-do list I can easily check off once I've completed each part. I actually made this board using the beat sheet template. You can easily access it by selecting more templates on a new board and searching up beat sheet. My second subboard is just a collection of my references I used for my studies. I included notes on my board both by typing them in the note tab, as well as drawing them directly to the board. I circled things in the references I particularly wanted to make note of, like the shine concentrated in one line and the draping of the skirt. Milanote is also great for collaborating. You can invite your team to give you feedback in real time. My partner is showing me more places I can find references here. I have planned all of my projects from the last 9 months using Milanote, and I really believe that it can help you jumpstart your projects this year. And the best part is, Milanote is available for free with no time limit, so you can sign up using my link in the description. Alright, back to more IBIS Paint tips. One of the most powerful tools we have as digital artists is layering folders and clipping masks. Imagine a scenario where you only had one layer to color on. Inevitably, the colors of the skin, hair, and clothes would all bleed together, creating a mess. This is easily alleviated with the use of tip number 6, clipping masks and folders. You can use clipping masks to color within the boundaries of your base color or mask. By keeping the layers separate, you can change colors or make edits to the shading without the risk of affecting unintended layers. Folders will help you further control this organization. To make use of a clipping mask, have your base color or mask ready. Then, make a new layer and click this button to turn on the clipping. Make sure it's to the layer below. Now you can shade on this layer without the worry of coloring outside the boundaries. You can also change the colors easily by either locking the layer through pressing Alpha Lock and filling in your new color, or hue shifting using the FX button. To create a folder, you will go to your layer menu and hit this plus stack button and create a new folder. Drag your correspondent layers under the folder to group them. You can use folders to organize your lines, color, or background. However, I also like to use folders to stack clipping masks. For the skin, I'll have a clipping mask for the shading. But then, I might group the skin, hair, and clothes together to create a new clipping mask on top to add lighting on top of all of them. It takes some time to get used to using clipping masks and folders, but once you get the hang of it, it unlocks the powerful potential of digital art. You'll be able to hold old copies of the drawing and revert back to them if needed. Additionally, you'll have the peace of mind of knowing that when a change needs to be made, like the lighting or color, you have everything separate to do so. This makes it very helpful when you're working with a client and in the situation that a change needs to be made in the later stages of drawing. Have you ever wanted an easy way to do that hard to soft shading style that is increasingly popular in anime style art? Well then, you'll love my tip number 7, using the lasso and brush tool. By using the lasso tool to select your area of shading and a soft airbrush, you can create that soft shading with a hard edge. To top it off, you can also use the lasso fill tool to quickly fill in areas and brush over, or use the blur smudge tool for a blurring effect. Here's how you achieve this technique. Start by selecting your lasso tool and selecting your targeted area. Select your brush. I like to use a soft airbrush. Paint from the hard edge to the soft area, putting more pressure on the hard areas. This can easily be built slowly if you lower your opacity. To use the lasso fill tool, hit this special tool and then cogwheel and select your lasso fill tool. Now, just like the lasso tool, you can draw around your desired area, this time with the area filling in by itself. Switch to lasso erase by toggling the brush erase button, and you can quickly erase areas like this as well. So for a long time, this has been my preferred way of filling in shading quickly. I would love for IBIS Paint X to have a gradient tool so we can create the hard to soft gradient like you can do in Clip Studio or Photoshop, and we should definitely let them know. For now, this is a fine workaround. Although, I have been experimenting with a variety of ways to fill in shading that I'd love to share soon. Hehe. Okie dokie, I want to share with you guys a variety of ways I use tip number 7 with some extra shading tips. The lasso and brush technique works really well for shading skin and creating the softness of skin. I truly use it everywhere for a soft and supple look. For general shading, I like to add it under the brows, around the eyes, and areas that naturally incur shadows like under the nose, lips, etc. I also select the general area I want blush and natural redness to occur and softly brush it in. You can also create face contours for a super chiseled look. I also like to do this for the hair too, at least to create some major forms before I go in and add detail. Using the lasso fill and erase is great here to define strands. Hair will wrap around the head, and depending on the texture, it will fall down due to gravity. So to create that density, I like to keep it light near the top of the head and at a range of darkness as it falls down towards the face and around the body. I use a mixture of lasso and brush as well as blending to create this form. Now I'll keep on working on the skin and hair until I'm mostly happy. Can anyone explain to me what the heck all these blend modes do? I got you, boo. For tip number 8, I will show you how I use blend modes. If you don't know, blend modes are special modes you can apply to your layer that changes how colors blend and affect other layers. First, to access blend modes, you'll want to create a new layer and clip it to your layers below. You can set your layer mode by going to the bottom right, hitting the normal text, and selecting your blend mode. I won't go over all of them, but generally, these are to darken your piece, these are to lighten, and these will increase the contrast of your piece. Whenever I want to quickly color my line art, I will usually fill my line art with a gray or a brown color and set the layer to linear burn. This will change the line art to match the base color while maintaining its darkness as lines. I use multiply mode to set the shadows and lighting. I usually just fill the entire layer with a grayish blue tone. If you want, from here you can carve out the lighting using the lasso tool. Overlay is great for a variety of uses. You can use it to adjust colors or to add various lighting from general lighting, ambient lighting to rim lighting. I like to use a soft brush on the skin to add glow. Overlay is even great for creating saturated transition colors between light and dark called subsurface light scattering. Add is great for intense lighting like rim lighting. It's best used sparingly for that pop of light. Green is great for less saturated lighting effects, but I personally like to use it for atmospheric perspective to push objects away from the front into the background color. Those are the main blend modes I use, but I highly recommend you mess around with the other blend modes to find your own unique ways of coloring and styling. Okie dokie, so how do I use those blend modes specifically for this drawing? I'll add a multiply layer on top of my coloring and make it blue because the character's colors will be mostly blue as established by the water. On top of that, I'll add an overlay layer to create the ambient light of the water bouncing about as well as the sun. The glow of the water will reflect back at the face, so I add light blue there. Meanwhile, the sun is hitting from the top right, but at a lesser intensity, so I use yellow to pink. Finally, I'll create a new overlay layer with a bright reddish color to create that transitionary saturated subsurface light scattering. This is red due to the sun above. For the hair, I do all the same things as earlier, but I also create an additional screen layer. This will be to create the atmospheric perspective. As the hair falls further into the background, or the water in this case, it will grow more and more blue and soft. Lastly, I'll create an add layer to create the intense rim lighting and scattered dappling of light from the sun. After I've established all the layer modes for lighting, I'll go back in to add more shading to my previous shading layers. I can easily adjust the lighting on the blend mode layers as I'm working to adjust for them. A few things I focus on is ambient occlusion, which is the natural shadow that occurs when two objects are placed against each other. Think how under the chin there's always shadows, etc. Then I focus on texture and form. Round objects like the breast will have a spherical type shading, so I shade to indicate that volume. Texture is another thing to think about, which is most important for clothing. Since Jin's clothing is mostly sheer and cloth, I keep that in mind as I color using lighter shades and contrast. Lastly, you'll want to add the details. For me, that's enhancing forms of clothing and wrinkles and adding transparency on the clothing due to the water or sheerness. I will also continue to just create a generally wet look. Build and keep building to create that depth. Occasionally, when you're working on digital art, you may either lose your file, save over it, Or maybe you just want to recover to an older version due to liking it better. Luckily, Ibis Paint X has a wonderful solution to this that I've learned recently. For mini tip number 2, you can actually recover previous versions of your file from the time-lapse feature. It's easy to do. Simply select the bottom right arrow, then back to my gallery. Once here, you'll select this play button at the top right. From then on, you have to do a little waiting for the file to get back to the spot you want to recover to. When it's there, hit pause and then the 3 dots and select Save Artwork at this point. Once saved, you'll go back to your gallery, then you'll have a new art file at your saved point of the artwork. Very, very neat. Okie dokie, it's time to finish up the coloring and then we'll get into the next tip. Psst. Hey kid, need a brush? Maybe in this case to help you with those water effects you're trying to do? Well, how about you instead try customizing your own brushes? It's super easy to do. Unlike other apps, Ibis Paint only allows you to customize your brushes, but they have lots of settings and patterns to make this easy. First, open up your brush menu. Then you'll want to look for a basic brush you want to edit. When you find your perfect one, hit the plus button on the left to add it to your custom brushes. Select custom, then your brush, and now we can edit the brush using these settings here. I highly recommend you mess around with these yourself. You can update the brush pattern under shape. Ibis Paint has tons of different patterns you can use. I'd love a feature to make our own custom stamps and brush patterns, but perhaps in the future. The first thing you want to do is decide the brush type under the type setting. Mono will act as a regular brush, but water will allow you to use color blending properties, while double will give the brush an outline or glow. These have their own settings you can further edit. I like to mess with the shape settings to adjust the shape and angle of the brush. Then the jitter settings are great for customizing a scatter effect. As for me, customizing my own brushes is a great way to speed up the process instead of manually trying to draw each effect I need. I've actually made a couple here that I'll share with you guys. Feel free to pause here and screenshot each brush you're interested in. Okay, so I wanted to share with you guys exactly how I used each brush here. For the water surface, you'll want to brush in a general shape for a small cluster of water. Duplicate that layer by going here. Then you'll use the transform tool and the perspective form to create the waves and distance. Continue that process making the clusters larger near the bottom and smaller in the distance near the top. You can add these waves for light areas too. I like to add some darker rocks to indicate sheer depth in the water, and then add the crystallized effects on top. I used the foam brush to create some detailed water effects like shines and reflections, as well as foamy edges. For the water sparkles, we're going to do the same process, but make sure to focus the area in one line that the sun will hit directly. Then add some scattered sparkles for that naturally glistening look. I'll add Sparkle 3 in various spots to add a variety to the sparkles. Make sure to then duplicate the sparkles and add the Gaussian blur effects for a glow. We'll make a cluster of lily pads here. It's best to use a reference here as I like to make the cuts and areas of interest beforehand. Once again for the lily pads, I'll get them in formation using the perspective transform tool. When they're all set, make sure to duplicate them and place the duplicated layer under the lily pads, hit alpha lock, and color in a shadow for the lily pads. We're going to draw the lotus flowers using the petal brush. Once you've created the shape you like, just duplicate them and scatter them. The lotus flowers are more of a matter of reducing the sizes as they get further to the top, but we can also use perspective transform a bit on them too. You'll also want to duplicate them again and flip them upside down to create a reflection in the water. Then, from here, just shade everything in accordance to the lighting and add details. You can blur and blend out some of the edges of the water and also add the reflections of the lily pads and overhanging trees in the water. It's time to apply all of that to finish up the painting. So, you've finished your piece, but now it needs a little something special. That means you're ready for post-processing. The perfect place for that is in tip number 10, the FX filter menu. You can use the FX section to add cool effects to your drawing here. All you need to do to access it is to hit the FX filter button in the toolbar. But typically, to make use of anything, you need to apply it on a layer that already has something on it. So my suggestion is for you to go to your layer menu, then hit the plus stack, Then, add layer from canvas. This merges all your visible layers into one layer on top for you to apply effects. Now you can go through and add effects to your drawings without worrying about it affecting the original layers under. Use the blend modes here in combination with your effects to add some interesting effects. I also like to turn down the opacity to tone down certain effects. However, I want to share with you some of my own personal post-effects tips. Try out these 3 effects on your next drawing to enhance them. For effect number 1, we'll focus on adding more color interest. Add a new layer from canvas, add the posterize effect, turn up the count, apply it, then add the Gaussian blur effect. Turn it up to around 20. Set the layer blend mode to soft light and turn down the opacity as desired. If you like this effect, stop here. But if you want to add more color variation, continue. Add another new layer from canvas. Select the parallel gradation effects. Mess with the settings here as you like, but I like to make the wavelength very high, a slight angle shift, select the gradation coloration you like, and adjust further by double tapping the diamonds and changing colors. Set this layer blend mode to soft light and turn down the opacity as you like. From here, you can adjust with the color balance effects to perfect or adjust your colors. In effect number 2, we will enhance the depth of our drawing using sharpness and blur. Start by adding a new layer from canvas. Select Unsharp Mask FX. Turn down the opacity, grab a large soft airbrush and erase everything but the face and other areas you want to focus on. Add another new layer from canvas. Select the Gaussian blur effects. Turn down opacity, and this time erase all the areas in focus, leaving only areas in the distance or away from the focal point blurry. Now we've increased the focus of our drawing. For our final effect, number 3, we've got our simple post-processing effects like the noise filter and chromatic aberration. Add a new layer from canvas, add the noise filter effects, and adjust the overlay blend mode and turn down the strength. Slightly erase the face area to keep it clearer. Add another new layer from canvas, add the chromatic aberration moving effect, and adjust to your desired liking. Use a soft airbrush to erase around focal points to make it less intensified. Turn down as you like. These are my favorite 3 post-processing effects to add to my own drawings that give it that little bit of pizzazz. From here on, we're just about finished with the drawing, which means we can go into the final reveal soon. Before that though, I have one final tip to share with y'all. If you can't get enough of all these fun tips and tricks, then you should definitely check out extra tip number 11, the Ibis Paint YouTube channel. They have tons of tutorials and fun videos to learn from, and I've even tried a bunch of them out in my own videos. You can definitely check my videos of me trying out Ibis Paint tutorials if you want in the card above. And that's all the tips I have for you today. If you would like more of this kind of content, let me know by commenting on and liking this video. It helps me make sure I keep making content you guys enjoy. Thank you again to our sponsor, Milanote, for sponsoring today's video. Please check them out if you guys like. Alright, now, without further ado, please enjoy the final reveal of the drawing. Oh, hi again. I hope you enjoyed the final reveal. I included some cute Easter eggs in there for y'all. Hehe. And of course, I hope you enjoyed the video. I intended to seek out tips for y'all, and while it did start out that way, it ended up being this cool amalgamation of tips, tutorials, and my own drawing tricks, which makes it my personal top 10 tips. I hope you guys enjoyed. Anyhow, thank you to you lovely people for all your beautiful fan art. As always, I adore each and every one of them very much. I've been here and there on activity, but I think about and cherish you guys every day. Let me know if you have any suggestions on more Ibis Paint videos. Okie dokie, until next time, I'm wishing you all the best on your journeys of achieving your goals and dreams. Bye!